You're far from civilization, there's no cell phone service, and there's something lurking about. I've got 10 Cabin in the Woods horror films for you to check out.
You must be confused. Why would your wife do this to you?
What Keeps You Alive, released in 2018. What Keeps You Alive is a horror movie about a couple named Jackie and Jules who go on a getaway to a remote cabin to celebrate their wedding anniversary. Good start, right? Well, as the weekend progresses, the cracks start to appear in their relationship and the long-buried secrets between them come to light, leading to a confrontation with devastating consequences. The film is tense as hell and suspenseful exploration of the couple's relationship as they are forced to confront the secrets and lies that have been threatening to tear them apart, with intense moments that will make you wary of your partner. What Keeps You Alive is a horror movie that will keep you thoroughly engaged up until its conclusion. The film is known for its well-crafted suspense, atmospheric cinematography, and its ability to build tension through its character development and exploration of the characters' motivations. If you're a fan of psychological horror movies that keeps you guessing until the end, What Keeps You Alive is a fantastic, underrated Cabin in the Woods horror movie. Now, I know I'm cheating a little bit here. I'm just going to put the Evil Dead movies on this list, but my favorite personally is Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 is a 1987 horror comedy movie and sequel to the 1981 film, The Evil Dead. The movie follows the protagonist, my boy Ash Williams, as he travels to a remote cabin with his girlfriend and is confronted by demonic forces. As the demonic possession of the cabin and its inhabitants intensifies, Ash must fight for survival against evil forces that seek to destroy him. With a mix of humor and horror, Evil Dead 2 is a cult classic that is a total blast. The film features a range of terrifying creatures, intense action sequences, and amazing practical special effects that have become synonymous with the franchise. Evil Dead, the 2013 remake, is pretty awesome too. It's more than a reboot of just the Evil Dead franchise. The film follows a group of friends who travels to a remote cabin in the woods to help one of their own overcome a drug addiction. However, they soon to discover an ancient book and unleash an evil force that possesses each of them one by one. With the help of a mysterious stranger, the remaining members of the group must fight to survive against the evil that now threatens to destroy them all at the cabin. This is a little bit more on the intense graphic side than comedic side, but Evil Dead surprised me. It was really good. The film pays homage to the original franchise while still bringing its own unique vision to a classic horror story.
Oh, this is awesome.
Now this one's obvious. Cabin in the Woods is a fantastic horror movie that subverts traditional horror movie tropes and adds a unique twist to the genre. The film follows a group of friends who travel to a remote cabin for a weekend getaway, only to find themselves drawn into a way larger and way more sinister plot. They face off against a range of terrifying creatures, they fight for survival, and they begin to realize that there is a lot more going on in these woods than they ever imagined. With a clever and thought-provoking storyline, Cabin in the Woods is a horror movie that has some great twists and turns that I will not spoil here. The film combines elements of suspense, horror, and comedy to create a unique and also unforgettable experience that challenges the conventions of the horror genre. Whether you're a fan of classic horror movies or you're looking for a fresh take on the genre, Cabin in the Woods is a must-see for all horror fans. Now this one is a tough watch, but that does not make it any more fantastic as a horror film. I Spit on Your Grave, released in 2010, is a horror movie that follows the story of a writer who travels to a remote cabin in the woods to work on her latest book. However, she soon becomes the target of a group of local men who attack and brutalize her. She's left for dead. The writer embarks on a mission, though, of brutal revenge, seeking to pay back her attackers in the most violent and gruesome ways possible. This film is known for its graphic violence and intense subject matter, and it has been the subject of some controversy and criticism since its release. While it's definitely not for the faint of heart, I Spit on Your Grave is still a powerful and unforgettable horror movie that will leave a lasting impression on its viewers. The film is a modern interpretation of the classic exploitation genre and serves as a commentary on the violence and exploitation that women can face in society. I will say that this movie has some intense scenes of sexual assault, so for those sensitive to that subject matter, please use discretion before you check it out. Despite those triggers though, this is an excellent horror film, absolutely worth checking out.
Nothing wrong with that, right? stay.
Cabin Fever, released in 2002. Cabin Fever is a horror movie about a group of friends who travel to a remote cabin in the woods for a weekend getaway. Wow, big surprise. However, though, their trip takes a dark turn when one of them becomes infected with a deadly virus that begins to spread rapidly among the group. As the virus takes hold and the friends become increasingly desperate and paranoid, they find themselves at odds with one another as they struggle to survive the deadly outbreak. With suspenseful scenes and a sense of mounting dread throughout, Cabin Fever is a horror movie that will keep you thoroughly engaged, laughing and grossed out through its runtime. The film is known for its blend of humor and horror, as well as graphic and very disturbing depictions of the virus and its effects on the human body. If you're a fan of horror movies that blend gross out subject matter, suspense, gore, and dark humor, Cabin Fever is absolutely worth your time.
Look, we go southwest through here. We cut the journey in half.
Or through the forest.
Yeah, why not?
The Ritual, released in 2017. I've recommended this film on one of my other horror movie lists about cults, but The Ritual is a 2017 horror movie about a group of friends who go on a hiking trip in the Scandinavian wilderness to honor their late friend. As they navigate the rugged terrain, they become lost and they take a shortcut through the forest, where they encounter supernatural forces and are terrorized by a mysterious entity. The film explores themes of guilt, fear, and the power of the unknown as the friends struggle to survive the horrors that await them in the forest. With intense and suspenseful scenes, The Ritual is a horror movie that was much more than a cabin in the woods occultism feel. The characters are deep, man. The monster is terrifying, and the psychological aspects of the film are extremely well executed. The film is also known for a great eerie atmosphere, well-crafted suspense, and powerful use of symbolism and imagery to convey its themes. If you're a fan of psychological horror movies that explore the inner demons that we all have and that these characters have, The Ritual is absolutely essential.
I want to die too.
Stay with me. Stay with me. It's distort reality. That's what fear is.
I debated putting this movie on the list, but it absolutely belongs here and I'll never watch it again. And that's Antichrist, released in 2009. This movie is an absolutely fantastically executed and gorgeous movie to look at, despite how difficult it is to watch. Antichrist is a 2009 horror movie directed by Lars von Trier. The film follows a couple who retreat to a remote cabin in the woods following the death of their child in an effort to cope and grief and find some peace. However, the couple's emotions spiral out of control and they become embroiled in a twisted and violent journey through their own psychological demons. The film is known for its extremely graphic violence, sexual content and sexual violence, and very disturbing imagery, so trigger warning there. And the movie has also been the subject of controversy and criticism since its release. With very intense and very unsettling scenes, Antichrist is a horror movie that is definitely not for the faint of heart. The film explores themes of grief, trauma, and the human psyche, and it is a powerful and thought-provoking work of art that will leave a lasting impression on viewers if you can make it through it. If you're a fan of challenging and disturbing horror films, Antichrist may be the movie for you, but be warned, some of these scenes are very hard to watch.
We got your friend!
They captured Allison!
All right, going a little bit more lighthearted here. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, released in 2010. This movie is so wholesome, gory, and absolutely hilarious. This film can be summed up into essentially one giant misunderstanding, but man, is it a blast from start to finish. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is a 2010 horror comedy that subverts traditional horror movie tropes. The film follows the story of Tucker and Dale, two good-natured hillbillies who are mistaken for dangerous killers by a group of college students who are on a weekend camping trip. As the students' paranoia and their fear escalates, they begin to fall prey to their own misunderstandings and assumptions, leading to a series of misadventures and mishaps, and I won't spoil it beyond that. With humor and suspense in equal measure with this film, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is a horror movie that has some wild kills and hilarious dialogue and situations. The film is known for its wildly clever writing, well-crafted characters, and its ability to poke fun at set conventions in the horror genre while still delivering those thrills and suspense that we all love as fans. If you're a fan of horror comedies and you want a fresh take on the genre, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is the perfect pick on this list.
My name is Annie Wilkes.
I think one of my clients, Paul Sheldon, might be in some kind of trouble.
Misery from 1990. Misery is a horror thriller based on the Stephen King novel of the same name. The film follows the story of successful novelist Paul Sheldon, who is rescued from a car crash by a nurse named Annie Wilkes. As he begins to recover from his injuries, though, Paul realizes that he is being held captive by Annie, who is a crazed fan who forces him to write the novel that she wants. With each chapter, Paul becomes increasingly trapped in Annie's twisted world, leading to a tense and suspenseful confrontation throughout. There's some difficult to watch scenes in this movie, even from 1990, that are still iconic today in the horror movie landscape. The performance, the pacing, the sets, everything about this movie is honestly masterfully directed in a lot of ways. Misery is a well-crafted and intense horror film that shows the progression of madness. The film is known for its very strong performances, particularly by Kathy Bates in her Oscar-winning role as Annie Wilkes, and its ability to create a sense of suspense and terror through the character's psychological struggles. If you're a fan of psychological thrillers and horror movies, this is something that's going to keep you guessing up until the end. Misery is an awesome film for the cabin in the woods isolation feel.
What do we say? You shouldn't make things up when we're talking about...
Can you open the door, please?
And the last one on my list, Knock at the Cabin, released in 2023. Knock at the Cabin is an American apocalyptic psychological horror film written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, who wrote the screenplay from an initial draft by Steve Desmond and Michael Sherman. It is based on the 2018 novel The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay, the first adaptation of one of his works, which is pretty cool. The film stars Dave Bautista, which everybody's talking about, and he was excellent in this movie. In the film, a family of three are vacationing at a remote cabin, but they are suddenly held hostage by four strangers who demand that the family sacrifice one of their own to avert the apocalypse. The plot follows an adorable young girl, Wen, who is vacationing with her parents, Eric and Andrew, at the remote cabin in rural Pennsylvania. Wen is approached by a stranger named Leonard, who is played by Dave Bautista. He was awesome in this. While she's outside catching grasshoppers, initially charming, he explains that he needs Wen and her parents' help to save the world. I personally really enjoyed this film. It asked a lot of really difficult questions. It's currently in theaters, but definitely worth your time. Highly recommend going to see it with your partner because it's going to ask you some cool questions related to that. Check out this list here if you want to see my favorite horror movies with crazy cults, and check out this list here if you want to see my favorite romantic, love-based movies for a killer date night. Thanks so much for watching. Scare you guys next time.